Students, today we will discuss about Walter Scott as a writer of historical novels. Okay. According to standard, an historical novel is a contradiction in terms. Fact is the underlying basis of history. Fiction of the novel. Good history is the literature of knowledge. Good novel is the literature of power, saturated with a sense of the verity of history. It is imbued with the spirit of history and at the same time it satisfies the claim of imagination. In a historical novel, the novelist does not aim to present accurately and precisely the facts of history, nor does he principally seek to portray the life of historical characters. The aim of the historical novelist is to present life and manners, the way and feelings of the people of a particular period, chosen by him for his delineation. Historical novels differs from history. It is just magnetized history. To present and interpret facts is the historian's business, says E. A. Baker. To summon up a past epoch, to show men and women alive in it and behaving as they must have behaved in the circumstances is the labor and joy of life of the genuine historical novelist. In a historical novel, genuine historical novelist, personages are subordinated to the expression of the life of an epoch. Next है attempts of historical novel before Walter Scott. Before Sir Walter Scott popularized historical romances, attempts were made by novelists to write historical novels. Jane Porter wrote The Scottish Chief, a story of Wallace and Bruce. Horace Walpole in The Castle of Otranto and Sophia Lee in Lesage produced historical fiction. But they were not true historical novelists, for neither did they introduce well-known historical personages and allusions, nor did they present the life of the past. Their novels smacked too much of history and they failed to give the air of romance to their work. None of these writers possessed any feelings for historical realism and they made no attempt to induce in the reader a willing suspension of disbelief. Okay. Next is Scott as a historical romancer. It goes to the credit of Sir Walter Scott that he gave birth to the historical novel, which was later on imitated by a host of historical novelists including Dickens and Thackeray. Scott conceived of a novel in which history would be allied with romance and in which the past would be created with all the vigor and liveliness of the past. Scott's great success as an historical romancer and novelist lies in the fact that he successfully recreated the life of the past in his novels. He imparted life to the dry bones of history. He achieved success in revitalizing the past, for he completely identified himself with the social and political life of the time he described or portrayed in his novels. For him, the past, often by virtue of some chance revelation or contact, ceased to be past and became in his consciousness as immediate as the present. For Scott, the dry bones resembled themselves, says Una Pop Hennessy, and became clothed in flesh, and rubble reconstituted itself. Scott's great success and historical romance and novelist lies in the fact that he successfully recreated the life of the past in his novels. He imparted life to the dry bones of history. He achieved success in revitalizing the past, for he completely identified himself with the social and political life of the times. He described or portrayed in his novels for him the past, often by virtue of some chance revelation or contact, ceased to be past and became in his consciousness as immediate as the present. For Scott, the dry bones resembled themselves, says Una Pop Hennessy, and became clothed in flesh, and love will reconstitute itself into setting or pageantry. Automatically in him the past was reborn, reanimated, realized in any dry as dust sense to be history. It is to the glory of Scott that he presented the past history of France and England in a lifelike and realistic manner. He had in ample measure the historical imagination to recreate the past. The Scots Kenilworth will live during the period of Queen Elizabeth, and in quarantine Derward, we are taken to the times of Louis XI in France. In Beverly, we move amidst the faithful followers of James it round about 1745. In old mortality, we pass through the tumultuous and troublesome day of Charles II. It is quite true that Scott possessed exceptional knowledge of the past, but his success did not lie in this. His knowledge merely helped him. He succeeded because, in place of hurling the past into the present and thereby disconnecting past and present, we wholly projected the present into the past. Using his knowledge of contemporary life to humanize old world characters, manners may change and fashions alter, but human nature remains constant, and thus we have the apparent paradox that Scott's success as an historical novelist lay in his study really that he made the men of Robin Hood's day and Shakespeare's day alive and actual by virtue of his acquaintance with the men that lived around the tweed of his own day. Scott did not care for strict historical truth. He permitted himself only the same license as Shakespeare in changing the sequence of events, occasionally for dramatic effect, but characters and motives remained inviolate. Thus, in Kenilworth, he represented Shakespeare's play as already in the mouth of countries and statesmen, though he laid the scene in the 18th year of Queen Elizabeth, when Shakespeare was hardly old enough to rob an orchard. The historical basis of Woodstock and Red Countler is thoroughly untrustworthy in what historical truth is violated in making all senators the devoted followers of Mary, Queen of Scots, making all senators the Woodstock. It is represent that Shakespeare died in 1590 without writing his tragedies. In the historical novels, Scott never bothered about historical accuracy. His novels are like the play a vital and significant part to revitalize the social, political manners, way and life of the people. Scott makes us live again in the past century and makes innumerable human beings of his invention visible, familiar and akin to ourselves. Scott added to the air of romance to the historical facts in the splendid reconstructions of the past. Scott brought to converge upon the novel the same scattered influences of Romanticism. Sage Compton recalled that he did in his poetry, enriching its then and founds of inspiration with his wealth of antiquarian lore, his open-air enthusiasm, his delight in the color and movement of bygone times, and his intimate knowledge of Scottish life. It was Scott who could put into history the poetry of history, and who could put into voracious tales of medieval days the romance of the medieval time. The Scott made certain deviation from the facts of history by coloring them with his romantic imagination, yet he did not disregard the sanctity of history. He presented historical personages and characters like Richard and Saladin, Queen Elizabeth Mary, Queen of Scots, Monmouth James I with great gusto and delight. The old historical figures are recreated by Scott with the same zest as the life of the times in which he lived. He did not show any partiality in the presentation of historical characters. It was his desire, says Casimir, to keep the scales even and to grant all parties and mean the same kindly interest, and here he was almost always successful. The most striking features of Scott's romances is that for the most part they are pivoted on public rather than men's private interest. His novels, Sam the Antiquary and Guy Mannering, give us an imaginative view not of mere individuals but of individuals as they are affected by the public stripes and social division of the age. Scott did not always roam in romantic regions of the past, but often presented the actual Scottish life of his times. He sometimes left the wild romance of history for the romance of everyday life. He represented Scottish life of his time in his romances, just as Maria Edgeworth had represented Irish life in her novels.